The Finding Purpose podcast is proudly brought to you by Relive the Moments, founded by visionary entrepreneur John Lim. We live in a world where it's easy to capture memories, but Relive the Moments makes it effortless to re-experience and share them. From NFC-enabled tap coasters and photo frames to interactive video cards, Relive the Moments turns everyday objects into unforgettable tap-to-experience keepsakes. Imagine gifting a wedding guest a coaster that instantly opens your highlight reel, or giving your event sponsors a custom frame that tells your story with just one tap. Whether you're celebrating a milestone, planning a wedding, honoring a legacy, or elevating a brand experience, Relive the Moments is the bridge between the past and present, between memory and connection. It's not just a product, it's an experience. Visit www.relivethemoments.com and use promo code PURPOSE for 25% off your first order. Let's bring your memories to life, one tap at a time.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Finding Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Adam Vora, and I'm so grateful to have you here. This podcast is all about exploring the journeys of incredible individuals, people who have faced adversity, found their purpose, and are now making an impact in their communities. But it's also about my journey. Over the years, I've faced my own obstacles, moments of doubt, and struggles with identity. Through it all, I found my purpose in giving back, creating a space where people can detach from the negative emotions and stigmas they may associate with their own stories, just like I did with mine. Here, we have real conversations about growth, resilience, and transformation. Whether you're searching for direction, striving for personal development, or simply looking for a place to feel seen and understood, this is for you. So if these conversations resonate with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on social media. Now let's dive into today's episode.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Finding Purpose podcast. I'm Adam, and I'm grateful you're here. Whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, watching on the official YouTube channel of the Finding Purpose podcast, thank you for your support. If you haven't already, please subscribe, leave a review, and share. It helps us keep growing this community. Last week's conversation with Luis Omar Figueroa was all about leadership, legacy, and creating generational wealth. Today, we shift into a different kind of leadership, the kind rooted in healing, service, and purpose. Sean O'Connor is a licensed mental health counselor and trauma psychotherapist who works with everyone from everyday clients to elite athletes, helping them break through performance blocks and heal from PTSD. A former Division I football player and proud community advocate, Sean lives a sober, mindful lifestyle grounded in growth and service. He's also active with A.C.E, Action Cultivates Excellence, a platform for men committed to physical, emotional, and spiritual optimization. At Peaceful Living Mental Health Counseling in Scarsdale, New York, and through his work in local government, Sean partners with law enforcement to support those facing homelessness and co-occurring challenges. With the wedding on the horizon, congrats, by the way, and dreams of fatherhood, Sean is building a legacy rooted in faith, love, and service. Let's get into it, man. Good to see you, man. This has been a long time in the waiting.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm glad we finally got this opportunity to sit down together because I love what you do, love what you stand for. I love the way that you carry yourself, and a lot of the things that I talk about on the podcast align really well with what, not only what you do professionally, but the way you lead your life and try to inspire others. So yeah. I'm super grateful to have you here today.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and it's interesting to hear you say that. That's just the way that I carry myself, the way that I speak and tell the story, because we'll get into that, but that was something that took a long time to develop, kind of like the diminishing of an imposter syndrome. So it feels really good to just feel comfortable being here, and then absolutely in the way that there's no coincidences, and it's a very small world, and how we cross paths in this very spot, and then obviously at some of the A.C.E events. So
yeah,
grateful
man.
to be here, man.
I I mean, yeah, the ACE events obviously were a big part. I've had both Dave and Sean on the podcast. Really, in the earlier days, Sean was probably one of my first 10 episodes, and Dave was, after I'd moved into an in studio. I'm pretty sure Sean's was on Riverside, but obviously the community that they're building is gonna attract gentlemen like yourself. I'd love to jump into just like a short bio of where you came from, early life, and then we can kind of just go off to any of the topics that we've already outlined as important to ourselves.
Absolutely. So, just basic like childhood, where'd you grow up and all that? Yeah. So, so I'm from Valhalla, which is Westchester, New York, and from a big Irish family. My mother was one of 8 daughters.
Damn.
So, yes, I grew up with my mom and 7 aunts, and my dad was one of 5. And they're both from White Plains. So, living right next door, our lives were very intertwined in Valhalla and White Plains. And, I had an awesome childhood. Awesome childhood. When I think back to it, I think of awesome vacations. I got everything I ever wanted. I have an awesome older sister. Everybody immediate and extended was athletes. We had, summer barbecues, camps, pools, beaches, just your pretty standard, awesome, like suburban upbringing. And then, and sports were always really intertwined in everything. And I played football, baseball, and basketball my whole life, up until college. And then I played football in college. And,
Where'd you go to school?
I played at 2 schools. I played at UMass and I played at Long Island University.
I went to UMass.
Really?
Yeah, I went to UMass Amherst.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Dude, I lived in Pierpont for a little bit. Then I lived in, I moved around a lot because I kept getting kicked out of dorms. But I lived in Southwest for a while. Then they put me up in Northeast for a hot minute because I got put in like, I don't know, they put me with all the Asian engineering students there for a hot minute. And then me and my roommate got the boot again. We had to go to the dry dorm. It was James in Southwest.
Wow.
So yeah, dude, I went to UMass.
That's incredible because those 4 years are such a, from what I remember from them, like I know looking back a lot of what happened, even if I don't remember a lot of individual experiences like that, those 4 years, I mean, that's a big divider in my life and like what you talk about, what we're going to talk about. If you could just like split it in half like that, just from the way I grew up and the types of, the size of the town and the schools I came from, to just go to UMass Amherst right from, no junior college, no prep school, both for football and academically. Oh my, wow. Like,
yeah,
it was hard.
I mean, it's a huge transition.
Oh
and,
yeah.
When you made that decision to go there, was it because you came from a small community? Was that the driving factor?
Yeah, I think so. When I look back at it, when my mom went there, and the summer going into my senior year, I actually didn't know that I was going to be good enough to get recruited. Just part of my overall view of myself in life. Like I knew I was good enough to be on teams and stuff. Every team that I tried out for in high school and made, but I never thought of myself at that time as, like, oh yeah, I could play in college. I was almost too humble and modest. And my mom went there. So she wanted, my sister was at Springfield, which is like 20 minutes south of there. So we went up to visit her, and then she was like, let me show you UMass just to see if you want to go there. Because I always, I went to private high school where they really push, Iona, Sacred Heart, Fairfield, the like small private schools. And and I had big, I don't know, I always felt like I wanted to just get out of such a small town, and the idea of a college with like 30 to 50,000 students, it really appealed to me. That like kind of like explorers, like adventurers mindset, I guess. I wanted to get out. So I remember going there, and once I saw Southwest, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is like a city. And then I went to see the football stadium, and my uncle, who was my first football coach, also was an alumni there. So there's a little bit of a legacy. Standing on the field and being like, wow, it would be awesome to play here. but I never thought it would actually come to fruition, later on. So,
Dude, it's so funny because one of my earliest memories of UMass was football games. And I ended up joining a fraternity. I joined Sammy, and so I was in Sammy for a while. But I remember like we would party like super hard on a Friday, and I lived in Washington, which is right at the peak, right at the head of.
I was in JQA.
You in JQA, yeah. I was in JA for a little bit there too.
Yeah.
And on days that we had a home game, the fucking marching band would go by our dorm, and I'd be like hung over, and it would wake me up because it would just like amplify, going through past Berkshire, like it would just like go right down Fearing, and and it would wake up all my friends who were like on either my floor or like they would all just like come in because I was like the only one with like a single, and they'd be like, let's go, let's fucking.
What year was this?
I mean, I was 04 through 08.
04 through 08.
Or actually, really 07, yeah.
So you graduated right before I got there. I was there from 08 to 2012.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
that's why. So like my
you
freshman
left that
year,
spring, and I got there in the fall.
Yeah, my freshman year was the year that the Red Sox won the World Series, beat the Yankees, and my Eagles ended up losing to the Patriots. So I got to witness these obnoxious massholes,
The riots.
Well, yeah. And it's crazy because they were more wild when the Red Sox won in the ALCS than actually winning the fucking World Series against the Cardinals.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you guys just won the World Series and you just destroyed this campus last week. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
When you get a chance, YouTube that Super Bowl, the second one where the Giants won. The second, I don't remember what Super Bowl it was, but it was 2012.
Yeah.
So that was my senior year. That was insane. They were angry, like there was the police came in on horses. They were shooting kids with paintballs. They're rolling flashbangs out into the. I was like, that was like the cherry on top of going to a school where I was like, I never thought I'd see anything like this besides a movie.
Yeah,
and then you live it, and
dude,
yeah.
I mean, but at that point they had already won 3. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm talking about like them breaking that curse. They were so crazy.
I can imagine.
And that was before like the campus had really like clamped down.
Yeah.
Because now they saw how crazy they were. But you know what? One of the things that it really gave me was these people were, because all my friends from school are Massholes. You know what I mean? Like they live in Saugus, they live in Newton, they live out by Boston.
Yep.
Like it's funny because when I ask people all the time, if they say they're from Boston, I'm always like, North Shore or South Shore. And I have no idea really what they're talking about, frankly. But I remember being there and other Massholes would meet each other. People are going to listen to this and be like, why is Adam so mean to Massachusetts people? And they would meet each other, bro. And they would always ask, are you North Shore or South Shore if they said they were from Boston. So I always ask that to people and they'll be like, South Shore. And I'm like, oh, I don't really know what that means. Are you from Southie? But like it also gave me an affinity for the city of Boston. And one of the things, my roommate was a diehard Celtics fan. And we would go to games, and I ended up adopting one of those fan bases and becoming a diehard Celtics fan. So I love the C's. And people are always like, "Oh, you're a Philly fan, you're a Celtics fan." I'm like, there's a reason behind it. Yeah, but aside from that, one of the things that you mentioned was growing up in Valhalla and then having the opportunity to play football, but still feeling like you weren't enough. And you almost alluded that that's been like an underlying theme of kind of your development and growing up. Let's talk about that because I think that's really important, especially given obviously the themes of the podcast around purpose. I think a lot of folks do struggle with that, and sometimes that is a huge obstacle when it comes to truly discovering your purpose.
Absolutely. What you said made me think of where that came from, where the message that I wasn't enough. I mean, it's always self-imposed, but it's influenced by our like faulty perception as kids with what we hear around us. So you hear something enough as a kid from an adult where they think they're motivating you or they're just pushing you in a way that they know how to, but you take it when you can't live up to that expectation. You take it as like, well, shit, they're saying this so matter of fact that you're so big, you're built for football. You're built for football. Like that just rings in my head. You're built for football. And at the time, it's almost like, okay, that you see it in a very polarized way, that like, that's what I'm supposed to do. So if I'm not the greatest at that, I was really good. I was not the greatest. I was one of the best on my team, but it took me a shitload of work till my senior year. Freshman, sophomore, junior year, it was actually really, in high school, it was embarrassing because I looked at, like, you know, the kids would say, they were like, you look like Tarzan, but you play like Jane. And like, that was, that was true for a while. Cause I wasn't mean enough. This is all intertwined. Like I wasn't mean enough. I was an angry fucking kid. I had a vicious temper and I could get real. Yeah. I had a horrible temper and I was very angry and irritable, complained about a lot. Like I was definitely, I was pissed off enough to be aggressive in the way that I needed to be, but I couldn't control it. I never learned how to control it. If I was as aggressive as I needed to be on the field, it was just a little bit out of control. If I was in control, it was just a little too soft, and I never found that sweet spot. I just never did. That's part of why I do what I do now. Sometimes I'm literally just speaking to myself when people come and seek out help why they can't perform the way that they perform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that you acknowledge is like you were angry as a kid, and you know, obviously working in the therapeutic space. You know, I'm a firm believer that a lot of the things that resonated throughout my life, both as a teenager and adulthood, was really rooted in, you know, the inner child and the little boy.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about that a lot on this podcast. So, you know, as a boy, you said you were angry. Have you had the opportunity to kind of peel back the layers and kind of find the root of that anger?
Oh yeah. 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 I started therapy when I was 21, as soon as I graduated. I may have actually went once before I was a senior, but it was more of like a career counseling, where I was just talking to someone that was a sports psychologist, because I had I had an itch to do that. I thought at the time that was exactly what I wanted to do, and I went and spoke with one, and then I graduated. And after everything that happened my senior year at UMass, I came back and I was like, hey, you know, career counseling was a huge help, but I'm also kind of fucked up. Like, can we dive into some more stuff?
Yeah.
So that started an incredible journey of just individuating and kind of existing in a space completely outside of anywhere else that I was ever influenced by. And having someone who could sit with how big my emotion was, how big the anger was, and literally not walk out the door, not try to diminish it, and just hold it with me. That's who was benefiting from that young kid who felt so much anger, but also knew that it wasn't appropriate to explode. And really, really walked on eggshells to not piss off other people, but just felt so much of it all the time. I just couldn't get a grip on it. I don't know. It's like if something pissed me off, like I had to tell I had to let whoever was around know in a very loud volume. And if I couldn't say it, I would throw stuff, I would break stuff. And that followed me all the way through into my because you can imagine, like, once I started drinking, that really took off. So therapy was just like a great place to contain that, and it naturally diminished just from having the validation and the space held.
Yeah. That's crazy, because like I see you now, and you don't strike me as an angry person at all, which is obviously, you know, just a testament to how much work you've done. And, you know, I think this provides a lot of value to my audience, where, you know, you're describing yourself, and then you're also describing how, you know, you sat in a room and you shared that anger with someone, and they held that space for you and didn't react. Because oftentimes, you know, I think it is the reaction that we get from our extreme emotions from others that keeps us behaving the way that we do. And what were, some keys to incorporate for you to really, face the anger issue? And then I want to jump into the whole, the sobriety journey and how that, because I'm sure alcohol, if you're an angry person and you had alcohol, that's never helpful in my experience.
No.
Yeah.
No. So you're asking like what were some key things that I do or learned?
Yeah.
About it? Yeah. Before I get into that, what you said a few moments ago about how people react to those emotions, like actually perpetuates the cycle. That's what a lot of people experience is the passive, not passive aggressive, as one phrase, but the passive and aggressive cycle. So they're aggressive and they blow the roof off wherever they are. They feel a massive amount of shame because they're like, oh shit, I just freaked out. And it was out of proportion to what happened, because it always is. There's very few things that we experience in life where it's okay, where it makes sense to blow up like that. And they feel bad. They retreat within themselves. They withdraw. They become a shell of a person. And then now they're like, now I'm extreme people pleasing. Now I'm just saying yes to everyone. I'm showering people with gifts and compassion and favors, and like just spreading myself thin to like really make sure that they're not mad at me for freaking out like that. And then that builds up, that passivity, that being a doormat starts to build up, and then you explode again. And it just never ends.
And that passivity is really more built out of embarrassment, and trying to save face. And once you feel like you have saved face adequately, then you give yourself permission to be reactive again.
Yep.
Is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Like I've been eating shit for so long now. Now I deserve one of these blow-ups.
Yeah.
So what I learned was, one of the key things that I learned in order to control it was I had to stop focusing so much on my parents. And they gave me the most, everything I could have ever asked for. They just could not. I could spend the whole episode talking about how amazing both of my parents were. But again, we're a Irish Catholic boomer family, so they know, and I joke with them. I learned a lot of my anger expression from them, and but they were always doing the best that they could. And now that I look back at it, I mean, I was not easy. Like I wasn't an easy kid. I also did a lot of shit where I deserved to actually probably be reprimanded more than I was.
Yeah.
Like I did stuff. I fucked up as a kid where like me just getting yelled at was like a godsend.
Yeah.
So, but in therapy, I had to talk about how was I supposed to not complain and be angry if I saw people complain and be angry a lot? I had to really separate that and realize that every time I started to think about that, I was actually just activating that inner child. Like I was who already felt kind of like the attention was off them when they were angry. So like you're focusing on your parents again as an adult, you're just ignoring the inner child. So I had to open a dialogue with the inner child to actually, when I would get angry, just to see the anger as a part of me and actually be my adult self and say to myself, you put your hand on your heart and you say, and you speak with your first name and you're like, Sean, it's okay. This isn't about you. And so opening up a dialogue was huge. Doing here, just energy expenditure, of course, exercise, going for walks, never really getting too cramped up in one space, spending too much time doing one thing, just keeping my mind, always growing and developing. But then practicing stillness too, just doing a lot of mindfulness activities really allowed me to add a pause in. So I still feel the eruption, but I'm almost, I'd say 90% of the time now I can catch it because it's like a sixth sense where I used to just black out and explode. Now I consciously experience it. Like I'm getting really, really pissed off right now, but I can hold it and then I can let it pass because it's just a wave.
Yeah.
And if our emotions are signals, that have a volume on them, what happens when someone's trying to signal something to you and you're not listening to it, right? They turn the volume up. So just learning that the anger was a signal to actually listen to it actually allowed it to turn its volume down a lot sooner. And then everybody wins.
Yeah.
And it's easier on my mind. It's easier on my blood pressure, like physiologically. So,
one of the things that I've been able to acknowledge is that like pretty much every negative emotion is rooted in fear.
mm-hmm.
And anger being one of the leading ones, where usually when I'm angry about something, I'm fearful of something.
100%.
And usually when I'm directing it towards someone, it's something that I really got to look at myself and be like, hey, listen, like there's something about this situation where my body feels like, sending that impulse of anger when it's really just asking me to look at something differently, or it's asking me to, take kind of an inventory of like my role or whatever it is. But like fear is always, I think, the baseline to every negative emotion.
Absolutely. Because anger doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a
Exactly.
secondary emotion. We just don't, we don't see that transfer. Like we don't experience it as I'm feeling shameful, guilty, and afraid right now. So now I'm noticing it transfer into anger. It just like the guilt, shame, and the fear just happen impulsively, and then by the time it gets to our consciousness, it's anger. So it's to protect you. In cases of self-defense, it's to energize you, to defend yourself. And then in the complexity of the social world we live in, anger is still just alerting us to a sense of injustice of some kind, or like a goal that you have being blocked. And it's just trying to get you to do something besides sit still and take it.
Yeah.
So that's where, speaking out for something, creating something, stepping into part of your purpose being, fighting for a cause, like things like all of that. That's all ways to kind of irrigate that anger instead of letting it flood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny because, also when I feel those emotions, the first thing I tell myself is this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of, it's taken a lot of work to program myself that way, because before that wasn't my initial reaction. Before it would always be like, let's ride this shit out and see who I can destroy in the process.
Do you ever, I actually thought about this the other day. I'm going to ask you, do you ever get to the other side of it and then reflect and be like, damn, it really felt like it was permanent again? And how many times has it happened throughout life? And still, when it's peaking, when it's 100 out of 100, I still have moments of forgetfulness where I'm like, yeah, this one's not going to end. Like this is permanent anger. And then again at the end of it, and I'm fine, I'm like, God damn it tricked me again.
Yeah.
Of course it's over. Of course I don't actually think anything that I was just thinking about, a few moments ago.
It's funny, like before I really started to incorporate just like guardrails, that's exactly how I'd feel, where this is going to last forever. And then I get on the other side and be like, why the fuck did I even think that? Now, if I tell myself right away, this is going to pass, I know it's not permanent. So I've already told myself that, right?
Yeah.
And then the second thing I really do is incorporate the stillness. Like if I'm feeling an extreme emotion, I need to pause.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I will, and my track record has proven that if I don't pause, I'm going to do something that is going to incite those other negative emotions, shame, guilt, resentment, which I think is, for me, the most toxic one of them all. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of linked to the whole sobriety thing, because for me, like I stack resentments up. Eventually, a mountain of resentments leads me to a bar. So, I'm very conscious of, hey, like this is a resentment. I need to unpack it. And if it means going to someone and saying, hey, I was wrong, that's what I need to do, and that's a survival tactic for me. Mm-hmm. But, now when I feel negative emotions, I kind of just let them flow through me. And it's funny because the folks who love me the most and who've seen me grow, I think I shocked them the most, frankly, because they in the past would walk on eggshells around out of fear of getting angry at him and reactive at him. And now, they're almost adjusting to the fact that I no longer react that way, and have been more comfortable sharing things that might disagree with me and might have in the past incited them because they know that I'm using different tools to kind of really flesh them out.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your natural state like invites more connection socially from that. Like you're just more approachable. People aren't afraid to have your, defenses just shoot up out of nowhere because that's exhausting for people. I think back, be like, man, I must have been such a pain in the ass to talk to about anything because I was so fucking supercharged with anger.
Well, dude, the thing is like a lot of the times when people were telling me something that would make me angry, they were being honest with me.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that truth. I had a distorted reality about what was to be.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion was the only one that mattered. And it was rooted in that very selfish, self-serving mindset that I had adopted, where anything that pushed back against my perception of reality triggered me, even though they were just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I look at it objectively, I consider their opinion, I consider what they're trying to tell me, and I can either use it constructively to change myself for the better, or I can say, hey, you know what, like that's good. I don't think it really applies here, and respectfully decline to incorporate it. But, that's kind of how I process it now, rather than immediately reacting because it disagrees with how I think, and it may cause me to lose something, or I might have to sacrifice here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just not how I roll anymore.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't, it wasn't serving me in the long run, bro.
It's like you got out of an echo chamber where the only people in the chamber were you and yourself.
Yeah.
And life is just so much easier that way.
Yeah.
When I think of how I relate to your experience of that with other people, it's just so much easier, and it makes connecting with people and having conversations exciting. Like I look forward to so much, like having a talk with someone, because I'm like, I'm gonna grow intellectually, and I'm gonna learn something about myself, and I'm gonna be able to like incorporate it, and it's gonna give me something to work on. Like I get to, if it's somebody that's very close to me, like my fiance or a family member or a close friend, even when my clients sometimes push back a little, I don't say push back, but like just ask maybe a little more of me or ask me to do something differently. They advocate for their part in the therapeutic relationship. I'm not like, well, what do they know? I'm like, all right, this is awesome. Like I get to evolve from this, that's a gift. That's a gift of sobriety too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think that's possible when you're just intoxicated or recovering from being intoxicated all the time.
Yeah. Dude, I'd love to jump into your recovery journey.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's get into it, because I wasn't sure if you were sober, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love to learn what led you to choose that. That's a big life choice.
Yeah. So as we talked about, very charged with anger my whole life. And in retrospect, I think the first time that I got drunk or smoked weed or just did anything that changed my state of consciousness created like an associative memory in my brain of like, okay, if you do this, you will finally not feel the shame of how you are. Like you just don't have to feel like yourself at that time if you ingest this. Where it got more pronounced, I never, UMass, like it was, if you didn't, it was just, it would have been social suicide to go there and as a freshman and be like, especially on a sports team, which is so fraternal, and just not party. Like, are you kidding? So it never crossed my mind while I was there. But I had some experiences there that really started to unearth that I had an addictive personality, and not just because of my inability to control how much I was consuming, but just how I lived, how the drum that I beat to, everything revolved around that. I had a few moments with a couple of relationships that I had there, a couple of nights where I really, really lost it, like blacked out. destroyed property, screamed at people, screamed at the girls that I was dating. I never put my hands on anyone, which, I mean, there must have been somebody watching over me to stop that from happening, because a lot of this I don't remember at all. I just got reports of this the next day. But I used to wake up with the most unimaginable, gut-wrenching shame of like, I did something, I'm going down. Like, I'm going to look out the window. There's going to be a police cruiser in the driveway. They're going to be talking to me like, you gave somebody a black eye. You did something. You crashed a car. Like, you did something wrong, or something punishable, but legally. And I was lucky enough to bypass that, but also it was how good of the friends I had at that time. Like, they knew that wasn't really me. They just knew I had a problem. But what happened was I stopped playing football at UMass, and I had that second semester, the spring, off of the team before I transferred. And actually, looking back at it, that's probably why I quit. Or I said I was going to walk as a senior my redshirt junior year, so I had another year of eligibility. But looking back at it, I wanted to party. The addiction told me that it's like, yeah, you just want to move on to other things, and your career didn't pan out how you wanted it to be, and now you're going to graduate and move on to other things. But that was all bullshit. It was just like now you can party guilt free without having to wake up at 4 a.m. all through the winter to train. So the first time I had just drank up until that point, and then I started getting into drugs, recreational drugs, psychedelics, just things that really zonked you out, and that created that new hardwiring of like, this is a chemical way out of anger. It was impossible to get angry on the shit that I was doing. And that was the golden ticket to me being able to have a social life. I was like, I'm so terrified to go out and drink, because I don't want to break anything. I don't want to throw a table through a wall. I don't want to accidentally hit anybody. Such unimaginable shame from that I was like, oh, I'm obviously not going to stop drinking. So if I'm going to drink, I've got to do these things with it. And then that's the sweet spot. So I can go out and I can see whatever, and I can hear whatever. I can have like, you're like out of control, but totally in control at the same time. So your anger is just completely dulled out. So after that, I crashed. I somehow graduated. I got home. I crashed out that winter, so going into 2013. And a friend of mine who had also returned home from college because of his battle with addiction suggested that I go to an AA meeting with him. And I did 6 months in AA. I learned a lot about myself. I did some of the steps, and it ended up not being a thing for me. And I think I was just too immature. I wasn't spiritually well enough yet to incorporate a higher power.
Yeah.
And again, I was 22 years old, and that's when I got into, in that sobriety period, that door opened for me to go back to college, start grad school, and play another year of football. So I was like, well, I'm going back to play football again. Like, obviously I'm going to party. So I went back out, and, literally 10 years later, like, it just all came to a head, less violent, but like the same issues all came to a head, probably expedited by how much I wasn't taking care of myself with my career. Like, I was really getting vicariously traumatized through the work that I was doing, and just literally just like holding my breath all day, and then racing to the finish, and then getting high at night. And it almost really bottomed me out to a point where I would, wouldn't have been able to keep doing the job. And that's where A.C.E kind of swooped in, and it wasn't a requirement to be sober, but that first event in February of 2024 just kicked it off for me. And I've been sober ever since. I like to say this, that I had a sip. I did like a champagne toast at a wedding, and like I beat myself up over that. I'm like, oh, I'm technically not completely 100%. I haven't done any drugs since then. I had that sip of champagne, but other than that, like, I've been, clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I kind of flew off there.
No,
to
no.
that
I mean,
whole
I think it's
story.
important to kind of navigate that.
Yeah.
And you touched upon like a lot of things that, obviously I want to revisit. One of them being like, I think one of the things that people don't understand about addiction is that your addiction talks to you on a daily basis, every single day. And, I'm 3 years sober now, but the voice is still there. It's just what habits am I incorporating on a daily basis to distance myself further from that voice and to lessen its power. And for me, I was introduced to AA at an early age. That was probably around the same time as you, like 21, and it didn't stick. It just didn't. But you can't unhear the things that you hear in those rooms.
Yep.
And that's something that I carried myself through every relapse and through every legal issue I ever had and through every relationship that I burned. You still can't unhear that. And one of the things that always stuck to me is when you pick back up, you end up going down an even darker path than you did the time before. And that held true to me through every single time, and but I like what you said about how it was a way for you to feel numb and numb every feeling that we fear.
Yeah.
Frankly,
Yeah. I forgot to mention this. The thing that accompanied the anger was what I would look at as a form of like obsessive compulsive. I don't want to say disorder. I don't like using that. I don't even like using that word in my own practice. I had an obsessive compulsive personality, thought pattern, that just really attacked me all through my early teenage years, all the way through college. And that's probably, it wasn't totally unrelated to the anger, but there was just such a large amount of shame from my battle with that. But that's what alcohol and substances also helped. It made me, sometimes it amplified them, but it made me like comfortably numb with it.
Yeah.
If I could be, it's like, they're
No, I
still
get it.
there, but I'm like, it would just be like this acceptance. Like, yeah, man, you're just like, you're a fucking weirdo. Like, I really believed, I was like, God, fucked up or fucked me up. Like he needed 2 more weeks to work on me before he sent me here. And he just like, I don't know, I fell off the conveyor belt and like, just, I didn't fully get all my bolts tightened. I'm one of the I'm a bad egg, bad apple. All I'm going to do is take from people. I'm a nuisance. I'm an inconvenience. It actually, I can feel it in my chest saying that now because I don't believe that anymore. But those were the core beliefs that really drove me to just try it. My drug of choice was more. It would just get me further away from believing those things about myself. And it was all subconscious. So,
yeah, no, dude, I can totally relate to that.
yeah.
And it's funny because you said something also about how, you bottomed out and it could have been so much worse. And, one thing I always like to tell people is like, your bottom is your bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Your bottom is when you stop fucking digging. The second you put down the shovel,
I like that. Yeah.
that's the bottom that you could own. And that's when, there's nothing else but going up. And I like to say that because one of the things for me was always measuring the bar of what I hadn't done yet. So it's like, oh, I haven't done heroin yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. And thankfully I've never done heroin. But prior to it being that, like it was like, I've never done coke, or I've never gotten a DUI, or I've never been arrested, or I've never gone to jail, or I've never, all of these things. And then when all these yet start to happen, what else am I waiting for?
Yeah.
And so for me, my bottom was kind of a culmination of all three. I don't even think I ever really shared it on this podcast, where I lost a job, I got arrested for a DUI, and my colon started to fail me, and the doctors were like, "You're gonna die." And in recovery rooms, they always say jails, institutions, and death, and I had already checked 2 off the box, and the last one was apparently knocking on the door, and that's when faith really started to play a big role. And I didn't realize it at the time it was faith, but I now understand that someone else picked up the phone and called my best friend and had me ask them for help. It was not me. because my best thinking would have just driven right to the liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else, some power, some God, and I do believe it was God, was the one who guided me to that first meeting in Beaufort, South Carolina when I flew there. And rather than taking a left and going to a strip of bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all of the things that happened to me after that, I can't take credit for because I already had 35 years of a track record of what my best thinking got me to. And that's kind of how I look at, the journey now in growth, where I'm not that powerful. And I've kind of, I think a huge part of recovering and growing is surrendering and being able to invite other useful tools into your life, whether it's ACE, whether it's AA, whether it's Brandon Godoris was a huge part of, my personal development. The mentors that I've been able to attract by choosing a different way of thinking and a way of life, and not fighting them and saying, okay, I'll hear you out, and taking
connection,
taking what's useful and leaving the rest behind and not having any resentment. That was a really, really been really important to me, bro, because I'm a firm believer that connection's opposite of addiction.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just going to say that everybody thinks it's not abstinence. I tried the just don't do it anymore. It never worked. And that it was interesting that you always see liquor stores, or it'll say wine, liquor, and spirits. So that's one of the perspectives, is that people are trying to get in touch with something bigger than themselves, which is what it was. I was like, we were like, our best thinking, left to our own devices, we are the worst versions of ourselves, and we can't get out of our own way. But sobriety or abstinence isn't an option just on our own. We're just always going to keep trying to connect to something greater. And you think that maybe it'll be the next time. Maybe I'll have that breakthrough thought or connection on the next high, when I find this new strain, or I meet this new person and when I'm intoxicated, I'll have the next trip, I'll figure it out and won't have to do the shit anymore. And that's what you said. That's it talking to you.
Yeah.
And what you said too, where you were like, oh, I haven't done this yet. To see how powerful the addictive part of us really is as you're saying that, it whispered for a hot second to me, right now in real time, you didn't get arrested or get a DUI. So see, it's not that bad. And it's almost fuck you. Literally leave me alone. Come on, can you give me a break?
Dude, it's wild.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, it's so funny, man, because, another thing that I can also say is that I also have to incorporate other tools where it's the humility, the gratitude, those all are really essential tools for me.
Yeah.
Understanding my own, limits, I think a lot of my addiction was rooted in ego, was rooted in just sheer disregard for what actually was the truth, So I was completely incapable of being honest with myself, and that's really was attributed to the fact that I couldn't really look myself in the mirror, bro. And, now, this journey really started with the pledge to be honest with myself, because I wasn't fooling anyone. Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really important to acknowledge when you're going through a transitional period, whether it has to do with addiction or not. Most people can see something's wrong.
Yes.
And these people who you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes, this audience of whoever, they can see it. They can see you're struggling. And, you working in therapy, you can look into someone's eyes and see the pain. And, I think it was very evident for me. And it definitely was, because I couldn't look myself in the eyes.
I felt that too. I remember leading up to the last days before day one, just waking up in the morning and doing everything you do in the bathroom, getting ready or getting dressed, just looking down.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to look at myself in that because I'm like, God, like just the usage and then the binge eating that would come with it. It was really what separated it. What bottomed me out this time was just the gambling, gambling becoming legal like everywhere and in the palm of our hands. That really bottomed me out. That made every other vice like exacerbate. And like I could never admit that I had like a disordered eating too. It was the same thing. It was all it's all the same mechanics. Like it was just all rooted in shame, and like it was just more of anything that was like a quick dopamine fix. But my fiance, girlfriend at the time, didn't give me an ultimatum. Like that was what hurt the most. Actually, was like thinking of her still being with me through all of that. You know, trying to imagine like being a husband or and potentially, God willing, a father one day. Like lying to myself, saying like when the time comes for me to do that, then I'll change.
Yeah.
And like she interacted with me in a way that made me realize that no, those things aren't going to come until I act aligned with how I would already have to be successful at those things.
Yeah.
Can't wait for them to happen. They're not going to happen unless you actually start, you know, like you said, gratitude, like, you know, being grateful and using gratitude to kind of root yourself in the present moment and act thankful for you having those things already, as long as you walk the walk with it.
Yeah. Quick break to shout out our sponsor, Relive the Moments. Founded by John Lim, they're redefining how we share memories. From tap-to-play photo frames to interactive coasters, they turn ordinary objects into powerful, shareable experiences. Perfect for weddings, events, or milestone moments. Relive, reconnect, reimagine. Check them out at www.relivethemoments.com. Now back to the show. One of the things that you just pointed out, and I think is really, really important, is it's so much more than just removing that vice. Because if you remove one vice, another vice will come fill it up. Mm-hmm. Once you remove the vice, and, you know, they say this a lot, and I'm sure you heard it, like, you know, alcohol, you know, overeating, gambling, they're mere symptoms of the disease. Mm-hmm. After you remove those, what are you going to fill that hole with?
Right.
And that's something where, you know, I had to, you know, for me, that hole was ginormous. And I didn't even know where to start. And it really came down to structure and discipline, and also peeling back the layers of what like originally caused it. You know, like what traumas have I ignored over this 26, you know, well, whatever, 35 years that keep perpetuating the same behaviors, and, you know, rooted obviously in the fear of facing, you know, my feelings and facing those traumas head on. And then also like, dude, I didn't know myself. I had no idea who I was. And one of the biggest gifts of making the commitment to yourself to heal is you start to build a relationship with yourself again. Mm-hmm. Because, and that's something that, you know, has been such a tremendous journey for me.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because I think that's obviously something that you do in the work that you do with your clients, because I'm sure a lot of them come to you very broken, and you're tasked with providing them with an opportunity to meet themselves maybe for the first time. That's powerful work. Mm-hmm. So talk about your personal journey in doing that, and then how you're able to do that for your clients.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is doing that for myself is what has now allowed my clients to do that. Instead of trying to meet them, trying to intellectualize them to get there.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing since I was so jacked up inside and so like energetically off that I would just overcompensate by being like, well, I'm just smart enough. I know I can speak the therapist language enough, and I can conceptualize their problems enough that I can talk them with my left brain into healing. And it's been tremendously just like occupationally speaking, been life changing for me. Like I do so much more for who I work with so much less effort, just by having a better relationship with myself and being able to sit with myself. And if they ask me anything about what I do for the same thing, if they just happen to know that like I can relate to them, it's an amazing feeling to just look them dead in the eyes and tell them and it be true, instead of literally like staring into the corner of the room and starting to sweat because I'm like, I'm full of shit right now. Like I'm telling them, like, do as I say, not as I do, like doesn't work after a while, especially people that have experienced a lot of, relational trauma. They're bullshit detectors. I was surprised I was able to help as many people as I have over that time, before really optimizing myself in that way. But I know that it goes back to what we were talking about with the inner child. Like that's more integrated into me, that I don't need to be distracted all the time. A lot of times I drive with no music or podcast, with nothing on. It's just my thoughts.
Except for the
sound of
Finding Purpose
road.
podcast. So.
Right. So I zone out a lot, but it's not the same zoning out. I'm just wandering, and like I'm not bothered by it. Like it's I'm literally just just being still. I'm just like, it's okay. Like I can sit with myself. That's a beautiful thing. I've never been able to do that. That's really, really, really picked up the longer I go, without doing anything and just getting, and you're able to just have conversations with yourself in those moments too.
One of the things that you said is super powerful is I used to be like, do as I say, not as I do. And, I think it's almost relative in any field but very more so in the therapeutic space, where you can look your client dead in the eye and say, hey, this is what worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's, I think, really a textbook when it comes to therapy and the psychological space, when when you're sitting down with a professional who has done the work on themselves and is now teaching from a position of, I've been through this. These are the tools that I utilized that worked. These are the tools that I utilized that didn't work. I'm not saying which ones are going to work for you. And I encourage you to try something that works and stick to it.
Yeah.
And, I think that's really, really important. One thing that I can relate to in that is, I do have a friend, and she's a sobriety coach, and she's a sober companion. And one danger that I have seen within this field also is where you get hyper-focused on helping others. It allows you not to look at yourself. And I see that very prevalently with her, where she's constantly taking on new clients and digging into their emotional traumas and really, honestly, to a certain extent, labeling, their mess, with nicely worded therapeutic labels. But meanwhile, you don't have a relationship with your mother. You think your dad's a narcissist. You need to set boundaries with all the people in your life to protect yourself. And, I know you as a person and know how much pain you're in, and you're using your clients to distract you. Talk about that slippery slope.
I'm so glad you asked me that.
From the professional standpoint, because I think that's a danger in the field, and that's why it's so rigorously taxing emotionally for you as well.
Absolutely. That is, you'll hear that a lot from people in the field, that the reason they got into it, when they look back, they always said, I want to help people, and I'm going to be good at it because I've been like the therapist in the friend group and the emotional dumping ground for my family, so I'm naturally good at it and I want to do it. And the whole time they're, to an extent, lying to themselves that they're almost looking at it like, well, for me it was like redemption, but just to more specifically answer your question, like they're like, I want to help people. But when subconsciously it's driven to really give something more to yourself, not that you don't benefit from it, but that should be the secondary gain. It should feel good because it's what humanity is supposed to do for each other, and that you're embracing a gift that you have to hold space that way. And you understand in a world where there's not a lot of room for shit like that. That's why it feels good. It shouldn't feel good because you're like, yes, like my worth is connected to my ability to understand and conceptualize someone else's trauma. I correctly identified everything they're going through. So I'm not even thinking about whether they're okay now going home. I feel good because like I was right. Your ego as a therapist wants to be correct. You want to correctly identify and trace the roots of what they're dealing with. That's not what it's about. I've had far more success literally sitting with someone and like, well, both of us have no fucking idea what's going on, but I'm not going to quit on you. As long as you keep showing up, we're going to keep fighting this together. And like so for me, it was redemption. I thought because of how many people I had hurt in my life with the anger, with the way that I would cope with the obsessive compulsive thing, and obviously what happens when every addict knows that you hurt the people around you, sometimes more than yourself. Mm-hmm. I was subconsciously driven to seek redemption by, if I spend my life and just pour everything I have into healing other people and helping other people, just feel better and be happier and get over their trauma, it's like I'll be absolved of all of my shit that I laid on other people. And it felt like a life sentence. So I was the judge, jury, and executioner, like for myself with that. Like I literally thought that there's nothing else for me. When you talk about purpose, it's like, it's not a purpose, it's a life sentence. It's still my purpose because I just happen to be great at it and I love it. And I uncovered that in the journey along the way. But I love that I get to say, like, I don't have to be a therapist to impact other people positively and to create a space where people can heal and just better themselves around me. I can do that in any capacity that I want that's available out there, either by myself or with a group. So that has been extremely freeing for me to know that my job is something I get to do and not that I have to do in order to avoid eternal damnation.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's powerful, man. And I don't know if I could be a therapist, but what I do know is that, like, you're right. You don't need to be working in the therapeutic space to be able to share with people like what works for them and also lead by example.
Right.
This is a question that I think I'd probably ask any therapist, because I'm always like, and it's kind of rooted in the previous question. Now you have the tools, now you have the training and you have the experience working with clients and seeing all different patterns of behavior and seeing all different situations. How are you able to make sure that you don't bring your work home? Make sure you don't go home and psychoanalyze the folks who you really are, just shone to, because I think that's something that I saw, with the friend that I previously mentioned. She basically just had diagnoses for all of her family, right?
Yeah.
And by labeling them that way allowed her to brand them as unwell and herself as the person who can identify, and all of them are blind to it. And it put her in a very vulnerable situation, because then it almost gave her that permission to give herself a free pass.
Yeah. So, like, how do I wipe the slate clean after a day of work and
yeah, well, like, how do you make sure that you're like present in relationships without present in the relationships that mean the most to you, and wary of bringing your professional expertise into personal relationships.
Not trying to be a therapist for everybody.
Yeah.
That is an occupational hazard.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's an occupational hazard that we all have to get over when we first start. Mine came from just the excitement. I was so excited to have so much language to describe all the chaos around me that I wanted to share it with people. It came from a place of like, if I just explain to you, like the neurobiology behind why like this shit is hard for you, like,
Yeah.
like you'll benefit from that. And a lot of times people are like, shut the fuck up. Like,
Yeah.
just sit with me with it,
Yeah.
So that just by maturing naturally in the field, it got a little easier. But it came with, I think it was built in it came baked into like what happened when I just slowed my mind down overall in life, where I can still notice the therapist part coming up. Like I can't turn off, they call it the third ear. Like I'm not psychoanalyzing people, but like I just always hear symbolism, and I hear a thread. I hear a contextual thread. I hear what there is a good chance of having happened in your life. I just hear that, but I don't start to harp on it. And if someone is really venting, I just make sure that I slow down and I ask them, I say, I have a more like therapeutic answer that I can give you, which would include like validation of this, a little bit of psychoeducation about why this is happening, and then something you can do for it. Or do you want me to just be like, damn, bro, that fucking sucks?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to just like when it's my fiance, it's like, do you want the therapist answer, or do you want your fiance? Like, do you want me to explain it to you, or do you want me to just hold you while we watch TV? Like, so slowing my mind down overall has allowed me to do that. But it also just is a daily practice of compartmentalization, which is what I do which is what I originally thought you were asking me, which is like, how do you leave work at work? Which comes from just a reset that I have. Like when I finish, I do a breathing exercise that puts me back into the present moment, like really locks me into the present moment. And when you're in the present moment and you're not in session with someone, their stuff is now not the point of your existence anymore.
Yeah.
Like the point is to now just be present with what's ever there. I also was freed from that by what I said before about how like I felt like it was my responsibility that if someone's outcome in therapy, I had to help them, and if I don't help them, then I failed. I have to help everybody. They say you can't help everybody, but my ego was like, no, you can if you work hard enough.
Yeah.
So learning that you can't, and even when you think that you're not, you still are, because it's enough in this world to show up and really try to go on and participate alongside somebody's journey through life with them. You still are, but it's not, of course you always wish the best for people, and you really, really, it blows when someone's doing well and you hear something that happens to them. I feel that with them, but I still know that it is not
Your fault.
my fault, and it's not something I did that made them do that or have that happen to them. And that's just another like weight off my shoulders where, again, wish them the best, but whatever has happened, I will deal with it when they're in front of me. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. And I think it's also, one of the things for me that I've been really conscious of, and having like done the work and continuing to do the work on myself through therapy, through, 12-step programming, through everything that I do. Now, when I hear someone speak, I can be like, that's their fear talking. That's not them.
Yeah.
That's their anger talking. That's their insecurity talking. And I am able to identify that and pause for a second and really think how I want to react.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, some days I'm better at it and some days aren't. You can ask Claudio, frankly. It's true. Like when you're able to really put yourself in that person in position, then you people are willing to open up to you a little more too, which is really cool. And you're also in a position to kind of help them in a way that you didn't think you could before. And that's something that I've noticed, that the more we work on ourselves, the more we're going to attract that is either going to sharpen these skills and these abilities and these gifts that we now have, having, done the work for ourselves. And that's something I'm like super proud of, man, because I actually had an instant with someone very close to me, and they were like, Adam, you're 12-stepping me.
Yeah.
You're fucking, like, because I think I was like preaching, like, I always say, take inventory of yourself.
Yeah, if you use inventory.
You use the word inventory, people will know where it's coming from.
It's a brutal
but
step.
For me, it's a very, very important step that I have to do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I do it every night. I go home and I really just assess the day. And usually it's through a journal, but I look at where I went wrong, what could have been better, who I may have harmed, and, just take that inventory. And that's really, really important for me because, I think I started with that because it lets me see if I accumulated any resentments through the day.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did, I need to unload them the next day and make them right. Because if I don't know, resentment has a weird way of festering. And I think, I wish more people were more conscious of the resentments that they choose to carry throughout the day based on little bullshit, and a lot of times it's petty shit, man. It's this guy cut me off, or Starbucks fucked up my order, and but like those little things can set the trajectory of your entire day. And then the next thing you know, you're flipping out on a coworker.
Exactly.
And you don't realize it stemmed from something super micro, and that's something that, like, for me, I need to be very conscious of. And there have been times when I've gone to the Starbucks that I go to and I was like, yo, if I was a dick yesterday, like, my bad. I said that to the girl there once.
My fiance will literally be like, it's okay. It's just your shoelaces. If there's a knot in my shoelaces, she can hear me start to breathe heavy, and if I'm in the right state and I haven't taken an inventory, I will let things bleed out so much so that when I just need to take an extra second to get my nail under or the knot in my shoelace, like, it could lead to me kind of blowing up. And all it is again, like, another way to look at the anger and resentment is that you're the center of the chaos. Like, it's all about you. And that's a much younger, more immature part of ourselves who, if we're carrying resentment from what times where we've been hurt and wounded in life emotionally, we start to get very, we forget that our problems, like, our story is unique to us, but we forget that our problems are not unique to the human experience, and that everybody's experiencing that in some way, shape, or form. So when you hold stuff in and don't let it out, you start to really separate yourself from everybody else, and you're like, no, I have a right to get mad at Starbucks and get mad at the person in the car, because nobody else, even though everybody else deals with their stuff, they're not dealing with what I'm dealing with. Yeah. That's what I encounter a lot, especially with men. But a lot of my clients, I encounter that. And then in spaces where you're working with addiction, like, a lot of people that really have held so much in for so long that their ego has now told the story that they are so uniquely fucked up that what works for everybody else just won't work for them. And they're actually addicted to things not working for them.
Dude, that's so true. And, on the issue of, like, uniqueness, man, I like to say that, like, I'm not extraordinary. I thought all my problems were extraordinary. I thought that just how you just described, man, same thing. But there's nothing extraordinary about, like, what I went through, in a sense. Like, other people has had a mom die. Other people has had, friends, take their own lives. Other people have gone through the things that I've gone through and have healed and gotten better on the other side of it. So for me, really what it came down to towards the end was I was the only one who was really in attendance at my own pity party. It was just a one-person party. Woe is Adam. He's all alone. No one loves him. No, bro. Life is not that fucking bad.
That's what happened when I did 6 of the steps when I was in AA. I just couldn't, I don't know. I couldn't stomach just praying for my character defects to be removed. Like, I get what it means now, but when I was 22, I was an asshole. I was like, well, no, I'm going to outthink that. But I did the 4th and the 5th where you tell somebody all the shit. And when I thought that I was going to get like kicked out and like, you know, I thought they were going to kick me out when I read it to my sponsor, and he put his arm around me and he goes, another AA word when you AA somebody, he's like, you're a garden variety.
Yeah.
You're garden variety.
Yeah.
Like it
variety
feels like
addict.
the worst thing in the world to you, but you are just a garden variety.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, that's right. Like we all think what we did is the worst thing ever, and we're defined by it.
Well, that tool is really designed to detach shame from your story.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where a lot of people sit. They're very shameful about things it's just life. And, for me, that's what it was. And it really was, it was through AA was a big part of it. But the second part of it was when I just started to talk about what I've been through and how I felt and, things that I attributed a lot of shame to. And I just started sharing them publicly. And I did that. I said Brandon was a big mentor to me in the beginning. He gave me the channel to do that through his public speaking schools. And I remember the first, I've shared this so many times on this podcast, but like one of the first times I ever spoke publicly was in his school. And I shared a very vulnerable part of my story. I shared about the addiction. I shared about losing my mom. I shared about, all these things that brought negative emotions, and I shared it publicly, and people came up to me and they said it was powerful, and then that's kind of where this platform was born, where I was like, all right, like if that made me feel good, then there's so many other conversations that I want to have with folks who are comfortable, providing them with a safe space to share their own truth and share their own trauma and share what they've gone through, because someone's going to listen to this and be like, Sean, I felt the same exact goddamn way. And my previous guest, Omar, felt exactly how Omar did when he lost his mom. So like the same thing is all relative. Once someone else says it, it gives people kind of that safety in their own head where like, okay, I could share because other people have gone through it. And, it's important that like I said that I think I just dropped a post where it was like, there's no fucking problem in this world that somebody else hasn't already tackled.
Yeah. It really is.
It's about being comfortable voicing the fact that you're going through this tough situation and attract the solution, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, I got to a crossroads. I don't know if you felt this, but like I couldn't. It wasn't sustainable anymore. It was like I was so afraid. I was honestly afraid. The first podcast I ever did, I was like, I don't know. I'm not, therapist and like, former addict, like don't go together. Am I going to like my identity? And then I had a deeper moment of like, I can't live the other way hiding it anymore. Like, so it's either whatever happens with voicing it, whatever, or like literally just kind of like totally self-destruct by just continuing to hold it in. And everybody knows it anyway. Like, so just say it. And then what happens when, like, this is another thing I think is really specific to men too. Everywhere we go, it's in our nature to just kind of size up the room and like wonder how who's there is going to think about whatever we're about to bring to the table, whether it's a meeting or a networking event or a dinner. Like you're just like looking around and you're just like, automatically you're like, okay, all these things I built up in my head that I thought I was going to say, like, what is it going to be like to say them now as I look at everybody here? And that just kills so much creative energy. It just drains you. And then once you just get all that out, that was like the first summit event. The very first thing we did, we cold plunged, which was dangerous and stupid to do at 6 o'clock at night too, because like nobody slept because we were all just absolutely like high out of our minds on natural dopamine from like almost dying in 30-degree water at like late at night. But immediately it fired us up to go into the first vulnerability breakthrough development group where people just, people are just dumping out the deepest shit. And we had been there for like an hour or two. And like, and then once that happened, there was so much room to just create and connect and network and just talk about all the, and just talk about all the other things in life besides the tragic stuff, because we were free from thinking that anybody was going to like get sent home, or like if I tell them this, are they going to send me home or tell me that I'm not welcome? They're just like, no, you either hear somebody who was dealing with the exact same thing, almost like they were speaking to you, or something that you've already experienced and you can help them with.
Yeah.
And then it's all just smooth sailing from there. Like once we free that trapped energy that we spend guarding all our shit that we think is so unique, that's where all the magic happens after that.
Yeah, and it's so funny, man, because you're right. We manifest all these thoughts on what's going to happen if we let this out, and half of those things don't materialize. And then you talked about like the VBDs that you guys do at the summit. The cool thing about spaces like that is, they say if everyone, threw their problems in the middle of the circle, you're going to run in and grab your own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something where you almost look at your own problems and you're like, who am I to even think this is a problem when someone else is talking about, a troubled marriage or a dying parent, or, they're going to lose their house to repossession, and, whatever it is. It's like, I'm grateful to have the problems that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I really am, because
Yep.
those problems come with an opportunity for me to grow, an opportunity for me to build a new skill if required, and also an opportunity for me to just take ownership. And if I didn't look at them as opportunities, the problems that I have, then I end up going back in that cycle of just wallowing in my own self-pity, which is just fatal for me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to you about what now do you do on a daily basis to take care of yourself from a mental health component?
Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I do is I try desperately not to scroll as soon as I wake up. I know you have to look at, you got to turn the alarm off. It's going to hit your face. So, but I try to just immediately put that away. I try to work out immediately. But the routine, it starts before the gym too. Like I listen to something thought-provoking or motivating on the way there. It's like a 15-minute ride. So I start with that. I say a gratitude prayer. In all honesty, I fell off with that one a little bit, but I did that for a very long time and it was extremely helpful. I just wake up and when I get behind the wheel on my way there, while, I'll pause the podcast or whatever, and I'll just say, God, thank you for waking me up. Thank you for the ability to breathe, for the ability to walk, move, for the ability to, be going to this gym right now where I can exercise. Thank you for my friends, family, the roof over my head, my education, the jobs that education have allowed me to do, and the communities that I'm a part of. Guide me and my loved ones through the day safely. And if you just say that, but act contrary to that, it's all bullshit. But that just sets the tone. You just put something out into the universe that feels really good. I wake up grumpy and it's kind of hard to still be pissy after you do that. Or I'll text somebody something nice. Now I'll send a good morning text to my fiance, just connect right away. So I get a great workout. I hit the sauna, and then I listen to the rest of whatever podcast I was listening to on the way to work. Have a call with my fiance. We catch ourselves complaining sometimes and try to spin it into something more productive. But that's the morning pretty much every morning. And I make sure that I do some kind of meditation. Getting outside, getting sun in the afternoon is mandatory. Whenever someone asks me, what do you do? I'm always like, as I say it out loud, it just sounds so simple. Like it's almost too simple for it's not complicated. It's difficult sometimes to stay consistent with it, but it's not a complicated process. It's literally finding moments of stillness throughout the day. But I do a specific breathing technique with a focus on my heart and a focus on gratitude. And that really supercharges my ability to stay present. Reading, writing, listening to music,
Nice.
listening to, again, just stuff thought-provoking all day. It's really a combination of those things. Just diving into philosophy, something about the mysteries of the universe, creative arts. Like, you know, I have some guilty pleasures too with like some TV shows and things like that. But you know, it's all possible with that baseline of not having all this extra shit in my brain and body.
Yeah.
So the sobriety is the baseline, and then it's just kind of doing a little bit, a lot.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. Yeah, I love that. When you talk about purpose, and obviously it's the name of the podcast, what does living purposefully mean to you?
So, I mean, right off the bat, it's this is very common to say, but what you would do, even if you didn't make any money doing it, if you didn't need to worry about finances at all, like if you could just live for free, what you would still choose to wake up and do every day. I think it's just a gut feeling that you have too, like we talked about before, where you don't know it until you do it. So it's not always the thing that you're passionate about the most. Like you might actually serve a very good purpose doing something that you weren't originally passionate about, and you can develop the passion afterwards because of how it feels. I think it's just all surrounding impacting people, just somehow leaving a place or a person better than when you found them. As a man, you know, it's to protect and provide, and that really evolved for me. Because through football, it was like I was an offensive lineman, so it was protect. Like I was literally I'm protecting. My quarterback was actually my cousin in high school, so it was like protecting family. A very strong protective instinct, you know. But it got, like we've talked about so far, it got tangled up with. I've been so damaging with my flaws that I have to protect at all costs. But once you stop playing sports, you're like, well, how do I protect? You know, so that's something I do as a therapist is I protect people's, you know, the like how delicate their emotional experiences are. I provide a protection for that. Just keeping people safe.
Yeah.
If there's something that's morally right to do in the moment, just doing it. Staying disciplined to do the right thing when no one's looking. You know, these are all just parts of it for me.
Yeah. I love that, man.
And then eventually paying it forward and hopefully being able to instill it in a future generation.
Dude, I love that. And, you know, obviously, you know, you're engaged, you're gonna get married and start a family. You know, that I'm really happy for you, you know, having gone through everything you had and done all the work on yourself, and that's like super exciting. I want to end by actually asking you a question like, what are you most looking forward to in marriage and, you know, future fatherhood? But I will say, what you think you know about fatherhood now, you probably don't know.
No, I probably have no idea.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to start with the fatherhood because I think about this a lot. Through sometimes when I work with, I work with mostly adults, but when I work with kids, I have flashes of it. Or if I've spoken to like sports teams and they're younger, I can't wait for a kid of mine to have a struggle emotionally and to let them know that if they feel like they're in trouble with something, that they're not in trouble with me and that I'm just there to help. And if I get angry at something, it's just because that's how much I care about keeping you safe and helping you. It's not because I think you're bad. I can't wait to verbalize so much. From my understanding, I never met my father's father, but my dad did, you know, more than anything I could have possibly asked for, and knowing that he didn't get it from his own. So that was amazing to experience. But of course, there's still, I think, some things transitioning from like boyhood to being a teenager, being an adult that like he just didn't. He showed me, but he didn't have the words for. And I can't wait. And I know the action is more important, but I can't wait to have to have the words to share, to be comfortable enough in the language to explain like growing up and being a boy and is fucking weird, man. Like, like I can't wait to just be so real with the kid and have real conversations and make sure that there's nothing that they can't tell me. And like have them look forward to coming home and look forward to hanging out with me, wanting to tell me things, staying in physical and mental shape to coach them and be physically active with them. I can't wait to do that. As a husband, I can't wait to experience adversity together and continue this pattern that we've developed as like, it's not me versus you in this, it's me and you versus this problem. And that's been pivotal in our relationship in allowing us to be where we are today, is no matter how much something has, really pissed us off, we remind each other, like, remember, we're a team. We've already committed to growing together for life. Like, of course, within reason. You can't just you can't just fuck up any way you want, but like within reason, we are committed to growing and evolving together and, just facing things that way and not, just staying aware of not getting into the roommate phase and just taking inventory with each other. Like, do we need a spark? Do we need to do something different? Do we need to go somewhere? Do you feel like, are we dating each other enough? Do you feel like, what do you need from me? I just can't wait to have like a deep, like fruitful relationship with both her and hopefully kids, that just really doesn't just sweep things under the rug or just kind of like sit with elephants in the room, just really open up about shit.
I love that, man. That was beautiful. I'm super grateful to have you here, bro. I would love for you to tell my audience how they can get in touch with you. Mm-hmm. And man, we could probably go for another, looks like 90 minutes, but Claudio is, it is a Friday afternoon.
Well,
we might have to do a part two.
Not going anywhere. Yeah, of course. So I work at Peaceful Living Mental Health Counseling, which is in Scarsdale, New York. I have, my Instagram is Sean_OC78. And I also have a Psychology Today profile. You can look me up on there. And then you can visit Peaceful Living's website, and my landing page has more information all about how to contact me if it's therapy related, or you or someone else is interested in working with me, or you want to talk more about anything that we discussed. Shoot me a DM or an email.
Thanks, Sean. Sean, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much
Friday
for having
afternoon.
Me,
man. That was an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
I do want to thank Claudio for his expertise. Obviously, anybody interested in making content within the greater New York area, feel free to give us a call. We're based in Stamford, Connecticut. At Kai Visions is his handle, or you could reach out to me as well directly. I do want to thank my sponsor, Relive the Moments. They are amazing. They create NFC-enabled technology that you can incorporate into events. You can incorporate into anything that you are really doing. They work with schools. They work with luxury brands. Feel free to reach out to me or their CEO, John Lim. And last but not least, I'm grateful for all of you guys for following, for reviewing, for engaging, for reposting. All of that interaction means the world to me. I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback both on this conversation and all my other conversations. You can follow on the official channel of the Finding Purpose podcast, Apple, Spotify. Super grateful. Looking forward to keeping it going, guys. Thank you.